here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. In today's video, like many videos that I do, we're going to talk about blues soloing, and in particular, I want to just kind of give you an idea of something to try. I try to do in these videos, more than saying, here's a lick, learn it, go. Yeah, it's like pushing buttons. It's not really the idea, right? I want to show you kind of how to think a little bit behind the licks and behind the notes that are going on, and hopefully give you some ideas that might spark your creativity a little more than just saying, okay, put your finger here, put your finger here, put your finger here. So this is one of those kinds of lessons. So what I'm going to do in this lesson is I'm going to take a blues and I'm going to do one in G. So I'm going to think about a G chord. Now there's a lick, a very famous idea. Okay, and it's that. So to play that, I have a B flat to a B, a D, an E, and a G. And it usually comes with a pickup, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so it's that type of thing. Or something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's important to notice about that is that it's using some chord tones. Okay, so that note right there is the third of the G7 chord. So it would not work well over the C7 chord, or in my case, a C9, because B doesn't go so good over B flat. Okay, that's okay, no big deal. I just want to point out that we are using a lick, a few notes, a phrase, whatever you want to call it, that is sort of intimately married to this chord, right? I wouldn't play that over the D, I wouldn't play it over the C, but it sounds great over the G, okay? So that means that when the C chord comes around, I might have to do something different, meaning I'm going to have to kind of chase that chord. And you'll hear me talk about, I use the term chord chasing. I could, however, use the same idea over the C chord and again over the D chord. Okay, or what you might realize in the process of doing that, let's say that I had a G blues in my looper. I'm going to put it in my looper just because it kind of makes it easier, right? So if here's the G, the C, G, the D, cool, right? Works great. Also works great. On the D. Okay, so I can play that same idea over each one of those chords. And that's great. And it works. And it sounds good, and it follows those chords. But here's the thing that you may not have thought of, is that all of those notes, they're all good notes to use. In other words, I don't have to just play that lick. Okay, so I can mix and match those notes. I don't have to just play, right? I can play some double stops. There's There's a lot of different things that I could potentially do with that. So that's the first idea that I want to get across to you, is that just because you take a lick and just because you learn a short little phrase, and you might think to yourself, oh, well, that's not enough to work with. Well, actually, it's a ton, right? If I play it, I added an extra note, sorry. Right? And I'm playing all kinds of stuff that is not that initial lick that I learned. But I know that all of those notes are really good notes because they came from that lick that really follows that chord and it sounds really cool. Okay? So keep that in mind, because here's what I'm going to do. I kind of don't like moving so much fretboard real estate. That's just like, I don't like to take an idea and just slide it up 5 frets. I don't really like to do that. So what I would prefer to do is to move these notes down more where I was. You see that? So I'm taking the E to E, the E flat to E from the 8th and the 9th fret on the 3rd string to the 4th and the 5th frets on the 2nd string. Now the G, before I played with my first finger on the 2nd string of the 8th fret, I'm going to play it with my pinky because that's fine. But I could play it at the 3rd fret of the 1st string if I wanted. The only problem with that is I'm going to have to slide. I'm trying to avoid that. The A, I'm going to grab that 5th fret on the 1st string instead of the 10th fret on the 2nd string. But there's my C. Now you might see that, and you might go, wow, that looks like box 1. You're right, it is. Okay, so it's always nice when you kind of manipulate, you manipulate something like that, and then you go, hey, that's a pattern I already know. I'm just throwing that as an aside. If you happen to notice that, it's going to give you some more notes available. But it's not really necessary, and it's not really even part of the exercise today. I just wanted to point it out. So I'm going to play my C like that. So now I have G and C. Okay, now for D, I can simply slide up. But let's say that maybe I didn't want to. There's really no other option because of my D being way up here. Unless I wanted to move it down an octave. F to F sharp. So now instead of just going from F to F sharp on the 2nd string, I'm going to go from F to F sharp on the 4th string, 3rd to 4th fret on the 4th string, because it's an octave down. A, B, D. It's kind of fun to hit the B flat in there, but you don't have to. And notice that G is shared between the C group of notes and the G group of notes. Right? The G is in common. So that's kind of a nice way to switch between the sounds. So now I have basically 3 ideas. I have my G, and I'm just using that handful of notes. What scale is it? Well, it's kind of the major blues scale. You might notice that it turns into box 2. But But that's not really important. And I want to make I kind of really want to emphasize the fact that you don't have to play all of the notes from box 2. Yes, they're there if you wish to use them, but I'd rather you focus on these few notes because of the fact that you know, due to the fact that this is a really common lick, this is something that you hear a lot, this is something that people play a lot, therefore you know those are really good notes and that you should kind of play around with those and get really comfortable with them. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's a sound that you hear a lot, so work it and make it work for you. It's like the beginning of Further On Up the Road too, right? It's everywhere. That's just such a great sound. And then when we go to the C and the D, or again for D, and what's kind of cool is that from D you could go E flat to E. So again, if I play, and notice how, by doing that, with just a handful of notes, I'm able to get really nice connections between the 3 different chords. I'm literally taking the exact same group of notes, which is basically an arpeggio plus a note. It's really not even that fancy. But then I move it, and I move it again, and I'm able to create very nice motion from chord to chord simply by moving from one little shape to another little shape. And I talk about this a lot, that people try to learn, I'll say, the entire fretboard and be able to visualize the entire fretboard. I never visualize the entire fretboard at once. Learn it in little bits and pieces. And after a while, those little bits and pieces will connect. But you never learn the entire fretboard. That never happens. I guarantee that no matter where you are in your playing journey, I can ask you a question about, I can say, play me such and such a scale from such and such a point on your guitar, and it's going to confuse you, right? I have places where I get lost. You ask me to play an alto dominant on a certain weird spot, and I'm not going to know what to do. Now, when it comes to blues scales, that's not going to happen. But if it comes to more advanced scales, yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen to everybody. I mean, depending on where you are in your journey, unless you're simply not trying to learn anything new anymore, and many people may be there. But if you are, if you're constantly trying to improve and you're constantly learning new things and seeing new ideas and trying new things out, you're constantly improving upon your mental model of the fretboard. So it's a never-ending quest. I like to throw that out because I have so many students come in and say, I really want to master the fretboard. Yeah, don't we all? It's just not that simple. Okay, so use this idea to experiment. Throw on a jam track. I was using, as I played in, my 5x5 blues jams, which has 5 different keys, 5 different styles. It's sort of my base set of jam tracks that I use for almost everything. Or just play it into your looper. Just play a blues in G, play a blues in C. Take a small lick that you know and really map out, what are the notes in here? What am I playing? Can I manipulate them around? Can I play them in a different order? Can I play them on different beats? Really, really get the hang of it. It's also a great way to learn your licks better. Most people, learn a lick and then they don't ever really use it and they go on to do something else. And then when they go to jam, they can't remember the first lick that they learned, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. You have to really take them apart and put them back together again. Play them in different tempos, in different keys, different feels, different styles. Play them, play them, play them. I have this rule, I call it the 3 gig rule. If I learn a new lick or a new idea, the first time I go out and try to gig with it, I'm going to mess it up about half the time. At a minimum, I'm going to mess it up half the time. The second gig, I'll probably play it 2/3 to 3/4 of the times it'll work. And usually by the end of the third gig, that new idea or that new lick is integrated into my playing, and it's now part of my vocabulary. But we're talking, 3-hour or 4-hour gigs to make it work. And that's for a professional player who's been playing for 40-something years now. So keep that in mind. If you're fairly new to this, it's likely to take, a good maybe 8 or 10 practice sessions with a lick. Not that that's the only thing that you have to work on, but it might take several practice sessions to really get the hang of it. Give yourself that time. Okay? So, as always, if you have guitar playing friends that you think would get something out of this video, I hope you'll share it with them. I hope you'll give this a try for yourself. It is a lot of fun, actually. Aside from all else, it's just fun to kind of experiment in this way. And it sometimes opens up some new creative options for you, so I hope it does. And I'm Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed. I'll leave some links near this video if you want to follow me more closely via email or any of my downloads or anything like that. You can do so, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.